Rock star Bruce Springsteen has now formally endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the presidential campaign. The boss recorded a video in a New Jersey diner. He praised Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and he absolutely ripped into Donald Trump. Watch.
Donald Trump is the most dangerous candidate for president in my lifetime. His disdain for the sanctity of our Constitution, the sanctity of democracy, the sanctity of the rule of law, and the sanctity of the peaceful transfer of power should disqualify him from the office of president ever again. He doesn't understand the meaning of this country, its history, or what it means to be deeply American. On the other hand, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are committed to a vision of this country that respects and includes everyone, regardless of class, religion, race, your political point of view, or sexual identity. And they want to grow our economy in a way that benefits all, not just a few like me on top.
Springsteen said, "Not since the Civil War has this country felt so politically, spiritually, and emotionally divided. It doesn't have to be this way." Now, endorsements are always nice, and the campaigns love to have them, and they boost a candidate's ego. So having Bruce Springsteen's endorsement is nice, but political strategists will tell you that they don't matter very much, that they don't really make much of a difference. It just sort of maybe adds to a little bit of the excitement of the base. But in this particular case, Bruce Springsteen does, and here's why. There are a lot of people who are going to be participating in this election who do not follow politics, who don't follow the news. And usually those are people who just don't vote. But there's every indication based on the polling data and based on the surveys that a lot of people will be participating in this election who haven't voted in previous elections because they know that the stakes are huge. And so these are people who are essentially not so adept in terms of following politics or the news, and they probably listen to a lot more rock and roll than they would ever turn on a news station. That's why Springsteen matters, because not only is he inspiring these people to, yes, this election matters, go out and vote, but he represents a lot of people who are sort of distanced from politics, people who just love rock and roll, salt of the earth folks who love his music and love other rock and roll. And when Bruce Springsteen comes out and says, this matters, and you should vote for Kamala Harris, and here's what they stand for, it essentially gives some permission and inspires some people, not perhaps tons, but some people to say, okay, I like Bruce Springsteen and I trust him. I listen to his music all the time. He's part of my soul. Okay, I'm going to go and pull the lever for who he's endorsing. And that's why it matters, and especially in a close race that may be decided in some of the key battleground states by just a couple of thousand votes, having the endorsement of Bruce Springsteen could move the margins for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Now, that's the outside the politics endorsement that matters. The inside politics endorsement that also matters is from conservative Liz Cheney, the three-term member of the U.S. House. She is an arch conservative. She has never voted for a Democrat in her life, but she just came out. Not only did she endorse Kamala Harris, but she campaigned with Kamala Harris. And she said it's important that we put country above party, that we put the Constitution above chaos. Here's Liz Cheney, followed by Donald Trump's reaction. Watch.
So today I ask all of you here and everyone listening across this great country to join us. I ask you to meet this moment. I ask you to stand in truth, to reject the depraved cruelty of Donald Trump. And I ask you instead to help us elect Kamala Harris for president. I know that President Harris will be able to unite this nation. I know that she will be a president who will defend the rule of law. And I know that she will be a president who can inspire all of our children, and if I might say so, especially our little girls.
Harris is out on the campaign trail today with Liz Cheney. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Liz Cheney lost for Congress. She was terrible. Liz Cheney is a stupid war hawk. All she wants to do is shoot missiles at people. I really think it hurts. I think, frankly, I think they hurt each other. I think they're so bad, both of them.
A stupid war hawk. That's what Donald Trump says about Liz Cheney. Well, look, you might have had some progressives, some Democrats who agree, but at a time when the larger issue is, should Donald Trump return to the White House or not, Liz Cheney's endorsement has to sting Donald Trump, because what it does is it convinces a lot of conservatives who may not like Donald Trump but aren't really sort of used to the idea of voting for a Democrat to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to follow Liz Cheney's lead. And what Liz Cheney is doing is something you often hear from candidates after they win. And that is a candidate on their winning speech will say, look, on their acceptance speech or the speech that they've won, they'll say, I pledge to represent not just my supporters, but all of my constituents, all Americans. Well, what Liz Cheney is doing is she's saying that in advance on behalf of Kamala Harris. She's saying, I know Kamala Harris is going to represent the interests of all of us. She's going to be a unity politician, a unity leader. She will care for all of us, and she will uphold the rule of law and the Constitution, which is what matters the most. Upholding the Constitution, the very foundation of this democracy. That's why Liz Cheney is out there endorsing Kamala Harris. I don't think she agrees with Kamala Harris on perhaps 90% of her policies, but the biggest concern for Liz Cheney, for Adam Kinzinger, for other Republicans, for literally dozens of former Trump staffers in the White House is that they say Donald Trump cannot be back in the White House. That's the number one priority. If our democracy is to survive, if we're to honor the Constitution, if we're to expect that the rule of law is going to continue, Donald Trump simply cannot win, cannot get back in the White House. And so Liz Cheney is saying, I'm going Democrat for the first time in my life. I'm voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And that could, again, convince some Republicans, some conservatives who might otherwise perhaps just stay out of this election because they don't like Donald Trump to say, okay, I care about the local races. Maybe I care about my state race. And yeah, I'm going to be one of those Reagan Republicans who does not want Donald Trump back in the White House. And in fact, Liz Cheney invoked Ronald Reagan during her speech. Now, as for Kamala Harris, she said it was very courageous for Liz Cheney to come out and do this, not just to endorse her, but to campaign with her. And Kamala Harris said it is an honor to have Liz Cheney doing this and to have her endorsement. And she represents what true leadership really is. And that is about courage, about putting the country first. It's pretty remarkable stuff. And I do think, again, that both Bruce Springsteen and Liz Cheney, they make a difference. Liz Cheney within the political world among voters who might otherwise stay home, people who are paying a lot of attention, who are thinking, yeah, I know about January 6th. I know about what Donald Trump tried to do to democracy. Okay, if Liz Cheney can pull the lever for Democrat, I'm going to do that as well. And again, you just need a couple of thousand Republicans in some of the key battleground states to make a difference. And then Bruce Springsteen, who's convincing people who don't follow politics, don't follow the news, may have forgotten about January 6th, that, yeah, Bruce Springsteen is part of my heart, part of my soul. He's saying that Kamala Harris needs to be the president. So I'm going to, pull the lever for her because of him. And it just takes, again, a few votes here and there in some of the battleground states, and that makes a difference. Now, in the midst of all of this, there is, of course, a far more partisan campaign appearance that is coming, and that is from Barack Obama, the former president of the United States, who is perhaps the king at energizing the Democratic base. He has announced that he's going to be campaigning for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz starting in Pennsylvania this coming week. And so, that's part of the Democratic effort. At the end, both campaigns try to energize their base. I mean, you go after the moderate, the swing voters for most of the campaign. And at the end, the final 3 or 4 weeks, it's all about turnout, organization, making sure your people show up, getting them excited to actually participate and follow through on Election Day. That's what Barack Obama is going to do over the final few weeks. He's going to campaign repeatedly. And so that's part of the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz movement towards energy, towards enthusiasm. In the midst of all of this, there's Donald Trump. He's been pretty disciplined in terms of one aspect of his message, and that is Donald Trump, despite all the FBI statistics showing that crime is at the lowest levels that they've been in 50 years, that the murder rate dropped by 11% this year compared to last year, that every metric of violent crime is down. Donald Trump keeps portraying America as out of control, as lawlessness and chaos reigning supreme. And according to Donald Trump, it's because of immigrants and migrants and gangs that are just out of control. Well, Donald Trump came up with a pretty stunning statement about what he would do as president to try to enforce law and order. Watch this.
If you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day with the drugstores as an example, you had one really violent day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge, Congressman Kelly, put him in charge for one day. It's a chain of events that's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately.
One rough hour. You just let the police beat the crap out of people that they don't like, out of alleged criminals. You forget about the Constitution. You forget about constitutional rights. You forget about the idea that, no, it's the judges and the juries who decide what a punishment should be when somebody's convicted. According to Donald Trump, you just let the police go wild and just have them beat the crap out of people, and that'll send a message. Yeah, that'll send a message that America has entered full tyranny mode. I mean, this is crazy stuff. And normally, in a normal presidential election, that kind of statement would be a disqualification for whoever's running. That's not what America's about. You can send a message by, I don't know, increasing the sentences or the punishments for people who are convicted. That's a policy. But to actually say we're going to let the police, who don't have a great reputation anyway in certain parts of our society, just let them go wild, let them go crazy, give them full immunity for whatever they want to do, and that'll send a message. And it'll send a message that, you know what, if you're a minority in this country, if you're Latino, if you're Hispanic, if you're Black, you better hide, at least for that day, for that hour, because the police are going to come and just beat the crap out of you, whether you've done anything or not. That's what Donald Trump is calling for. It is absolutely insane. So is this impacting any of the polls? Well, let's go through the polls real quickly, and then we'll get to some more on all of this. A Real Clear Politics average has Kamala Harris up by 2.2. This is the widest margin the RCP polling average has had in this campaign. Emerson, Harris 50, Trump 49. The margin of error is 3. NPR Marist, Harris 50, Trump 48. The margin is 3.7. So both of those essentially statistical tie. Rasmussen Reports, which tends to be a Republican weighted poll and doesn't have a lot of credibility, but Harris 47, Trump 49, margin of error is 2. New York Post, which is an organization owned by the Murdoch family, Republicans, Harris 51, Trump 47, the margin of error is 3, so that's a 4-point spread. Morning Consult, which is considered the most respectable of all the polls, Harris 51, Trump 46, margin of error 1, so a spread in the most revered poll, Morning Consult, of 5 points. Now, that's just the national snapshot. What about in the battleground states? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. In Pennsylvania, tie, according to the latest polling. North Carolina, Trump ahead 0.6. That's within the margin of error. Georgia, Trump plus 1.5, also within the margin of error. Arizona, Trump ahead 1.7, also within the margin of error, a statistical tie. Wisconsin, Harris plus 0.8, also within the margin of error. Michigan, Harris 0.7. Nevada, Harris plus 1.1. Every battleground poll shows a statistical tie in the 7 battleground states. Harris ahead in some of them, Donald Trump ahead in some of them, but all of them essentially too close to call, which gets to the point we were making earlier about endorsements. Swinging a few thousand votes either way in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin will make all of the difference in this election. And if you're doing the electoral math at home, if Kamala Harris wins Pennsylvania and wins Michigan and wins Wisconsin, she can afford to lose Georgia and Arizona and Nevada. It's all about electoral math, and that's why these battleground states are so important. And in the battleground states, the race is a white knuckler. It is essentially even.